Hi, so today the main topic is the SSG in web development. So to explain of SSG and those kind of stuff, I'm just gonna give an example of how we did SSG. So this is our website looks like. There is a curricula page and there is a load time, but we just made curricula page for because this is really MVP. And if you look at those kind of link button and these cards is actually instant. I know there's a API calls, but this is even really how to say really fast. To render this kind of markdown into HTML requires some kind of heavy operation in the client side, but to reduce those kind of performance and to improve the to increase the performance and also to increase SEO power, we make it as a SSG. In the next lesson, so that's gonna be it. But how this is possible? Because if I click the cards, this kind of curriculum, there's gonna be a lot of chapters of it, a lot of lessons. But how do we really make some kind of pre-render page of it? So the reason this is possible is because we just call API for the build time. If you look at our code here, I don't know you guys can see or not. I think you guys can see. Yeah, you're not. And if you look at our page here, I'm just gonna zoom more. And curricula, since the curriculum page at the build time, I fetch. In the API client, I fetch SSG curricula. I know there's already API for the client, but our client requires some kind of authentication. We just made some kind of API, but build time, but doesn't requires authentication of it. So if I call API client and get response, it just make build curriculums or curriculums. And based on them, we don't have to call. You don't have to wait user to see the blank page, because this already pre-rendered the page with the curriculums. Also, since what if we wanna pre-render the page that is endpoint is like curricula and 1 and chapters like 1, 12, or it could be 3 or it can be 4. But we have to pre-render this kind of even the minimum thing, even 3 or 4. If we have the 12 chapters, we have to make 12 HTML file. So how does it really possible of it? Actually, the answer is simple. You build the static paths from the build time. First of all, we are able to get curricula at the build time. Based on that, in the curricula method response, there are a bunch of. If you look at the response of here, there's a bunch of ID and curriculums and title. And based on that, we also call the API that get the metadata of the chapters, even the title and the content, markdown content of it. And after making the stuff, we get our fully unstatic data, and we send to the client, and we can use it. But the question is that if you look at our code here, we don't really pass the props on the content. But how is it really possible? How we share this kind of chapter page props? We just make it possible via this provider. This provider is really good because at the server, as the build time or at the server, this provider the type isn't state. It isn't really how do I say it? So it doesn't really require some kind of heavy state, because we know the provider is that causes the multiple rendering, because it robs the parents. If there's something changed in the client, the provider, they want the components inside the provider, we just gonna re-render. But in the build time, there's no re-render thing because we are making the page of it. So we can just use providers to send the build data rather than passing the data to the process because that caused the process drilling. We can just the create context of it. So if you look at the code here, I think this part is kind of good. If you look at not this part, sorry, chatbot tuber content. So if you look at here, at the build time, we already made static chapter data. Since the cache data requires some kind of API calls in the client, of course, this first time at the first second is gonna be undefined. So we just render this kind of static file, static data. We just pre-render it. Because actually, because at the build time there's no API calls, the chapter data, this cache data always undefined. We put the static data. But at the runtime, there's a possibility that this data could be changed. So even though we already pre-rendered the page, we make fallback value when this throws the error. But if it doesn't throw this error, we can just renew into catch our new API calls with our new content via the API calls. So this is kind of really advantage of the SSG. So because if there's so many heavy operations, even rendering the page, we can just use SSG for it. It's not really some kind of hard thing. Even continue anyway. This is really fast and instant. And if it's like interactivity, we can just attach with the state of it, and that's very simple and that's very nice. Oh wait, hold on. Oh, there was some issue. I think yeah, but you have to attach with the interactivity, so I think. So I think this is it. So this is kind of like explanation of how you remake and those how you use SSG for your website. So this is it. Have a nice day. Next time. Bye bye.